What's up, guys? I'm BTC. There's a good chance that tomorrow we'll get the Halloween update, and along with it, a series of buffs and nerfs from the PTR that will have a big impact on the game. When the PTR was updated, I made a video that went into great detail on what all of those changes were. I'm not going to go into every detail on these changes, but rather just a quick refresher on what they are. Today, instead, I want to talk more about how those changes will affect the game and the meta. There's a lot to go over, so to break it down, I'm going to put it into a few different groups. We're going to talk about double barrier situation, dive, and then a traditional comp with Reinhardt and Zarya. So the first thing is double barrier. There are several changes obviously designed to weaken this team comp in the form of nerfs to Orisa and Sigma. Orisa's nerfs are quite simply that Blizzard has been slowly increasing the cooldown of the barrier, which overall reduces its total uptime and the flexibility of it. Now it's going to be up to 10 seconds. Sigma, however, is getting a wider range of changes that will overall reduce the amount of uptime on his barrier. It will take longer to recharge, and they're also putting a 1-second cooldown after recalling it, which will significantly limit the flexibility of the character. Two of the other characters often involved with the double barrier comp are also being nerfed, and those are Moira and Baptiste. With Moira, she's losing some of that self-heal sustainability, and Baptiste's immortality field is going to be losing some health as well. Now, all of these changes combined serve to limit the effectiveness of the double barrier comp. Unfortunately, as a side effect, it also means that Sigma is not really going to be all that good as a solo barrier tank with someone else who has, like, a Zarya or a Hammond or Winston playing alongside him, right? Like, if you're using the double barrier, Orisa Sigma, then he's still, going to be viable. But if you're trying to use him as the main barrier for your team, where you could do that before, with all of these changes, yeah, it's probably not going to work all that well. So I don't really like the way that they're balancing this. Like, I understand that they're trying to get rid of the double barrier or to at least weaken it, but at the same time, they're making other possible team comps just not work anymore, right? Like, you just can't run Sigma out front anymore because his barrier is just not going to be good enough. So, but even with all of these changes, double barrier is still going to be a very strong team comp, and one of the reasons is that while they did nerf the double barrier from Orisa and Sigma, they also nerfed some of the characters that are a direct counter to double barrier, namely Doomfist and Symmetra. Now, it's important to point out that characters like Doomfist are not played with double barrier, but instead they are played against double barrier. The DPS character selections are more determined based on what the enemy is playing as opposed to what your team is trying to run, as far as the tank situation goes. Because if they're running double barrier, then Widow and Hanzo aren't really going to be all that effective. But if they're not running double barrier, if they're just running a single with an Orisa and a Hog, or Orisa and a Diva, or maybe Reinhardt Zarya or something like that, then you're probably better off not trying to run the Doomfist and the Symmetra. You're better off just running a Widow and a Hanzo because they're going to be a lot more effective. So it's kind of a weird situation, but the fact that they're nerfing both Doomfist and Symmetra, even though they're direct counters to the double barrier, like, yes, the barriers are being weakened, but the things that are good against it are being weakened as well. So what we end up with all these changes is kind of a mixed bag against double barrier. It's both weakening and strengthening it at the same time. And overall, I think that much of the same tactics will still probably be used, but now it seems like there's going to be more room for other competing team comps of different varieties to be more effective against double barrier. And the biggest one of these competing lineups is Dive, which was very powerful for quite a long time. It just absolutely dominated for months and months and months. And it's also one of those team comps that just never really went away. Even during GOATS comp, there were still dive variations of the triple tank, triple support. You would run Winston instead of the Reinhardt, and you would try to dive more than just, running that standard lineup. With the newest patch, there are quite a few changes that significantly strengthen dive comp. Winston got substantial buffs to his barrier so that it now has a longer duration and more health. Defense Matrix now recovers faster, allowing D.Va to provide more defenses, and Mercy also got a change that allows her ultimate to be more effective and to pass through enemy barriers when it's kind of jumping off into the different characters. Like when you're trying to heal one, it will no longer be blocked when it kind of branches out to all your teammates, which is very effective when you have a bunch of your team trying to move around amongst the Orisa and the Sigma barriers. Now you can heal them all at the same time. And Mercy, even though she isn't played all that much now, she was incredibly important during a lot of the dive comp, so it's possible we could see a return of that character. And of course, also Lucio got some very solid buffs to his speed boosting potential, which again is a very good part of dive, having everybody being able to move in and just having a support that can keep up with all of the different characters like Winston and D.Va and the Tracers and stuff moving around the area. So one of the bigger changes, which may at first not seem like it's all that big, was an increase in range for Tracer. And during the different variations of dive comp, Tracer was by far way ahead the #1 DPS characters. In a lot of cases, the second DPS character was almost like an afterthought because of how good Tracer operated in dive comp. And this change that they just made makes it so that her fall off range begins at 13 meters instead of 10 meters, and that difference is about half the distance of one of her blanks. But it's more than just that, because the fall off range starts at 13 meters, which means that all of that extra damage fall off is also pushed back. So her damage at 20 meters is also going to be increased, and her damage at 25, and you know, there is a limit to it where it just stops dropping off. But the point is that now at much greater distances, she's going to be able to do a lot more damage. And to put it simply, you can expect that Tracer's damage output is likely going to increase by anywhere from 10 to 30%, which is pretty substantial. And when you take all of these factors into consideration, this makes dive comp very strong. And up until now, dive has only been partially successful against double barrier, mostly because Winston and D.Va simply didn't have enough damage and survivability when trying to attack all of the enemies when they're grouped up in that tight little double barrier kind of formation. Also, characters like Tracer would suffer because they just couldn't do any damage with all the barriers constantly in the way. But now that dive defenses have been strengthened and Sigma has been weakened, there's a good chance that this will open up more opportunities for dive to be successful as a counter. Yes, they still have the double barriers, and that might still be an issue for Tracer, but with the decrease in uptime for Sigma's barriers and the decrease in uptime for Orisa's barrier, then Tracer's actually going to be able to do more damage, right? Like, right off the start, when the barriers are up and they're at full health, she's not going to be all that effective. But as soon as those barriers start getting down, or when Sigma needs to start replacing it, that's when she's going to be able to start picking up that damage. And unfortunately, there's still a fairly large hurdle for dive to overcome, just in general, and that challenge goes by the name of Reaper, as he is a very powerful counter against Winston and also D.Va when she's up close. Yeah, she can defense matrix some of it, but he can still just shred through that mech very quickly. He's already run in the vast majority of double barrier comps, and there's already sort of that kind of built-in defense to dive because you have him there. Mei is also used quite a bit with the double barrier, and she can also be very effective at causing problems for the Winston and for the D.Va as well when they kind of jump in. And remember what I said, that you don't necessarily pick DPS to play with double barrier, but against it. So if the enemy team is running double barrier, then you're still going to end up running the Doomfist and the Symmetra maybe. But if they start running dive and they're, you know, throwing a Winston and a D.Va at you, then, I mean, you just run Reaper and Mei and maybe Symmetra or something like that, and you can probably shut it down. I think it really boils down to how good these dive changes actually are, and I think most importantly, just how effective Tracer's damage is going to be. If she's able to start doing more damage because of the lower uptime on the enemy barriers, then I think dive can be pretty effective. But if she's still being largely shut down by those barriers, then there's going to be some issues. Now, for other DPS that are going to run with it, I mean, yeah, you could maybe have Genji, but I mean, he has some other issues that I probably need to talk about in a different video. Sombra, again, I don't know, like there are some changes with the teleporter that she has, which might make it interesting, and a lot of people always ask, you know, if Sombra is so strong against barrier, right, like with the EMP and that sort of stuff, then why don't you see Sombra running? And it's because with double barrier, it tends to make her take a lot longer to build her ultimate, so it's effective, but it takes too long to build, basically. But with the new teleport changes, I mean, we might have to see a little different with that, because she might be able to actually get in, do some damage, and then get out immediately. Because of the way those changes work, you're able to immediately throw another one, which is pretty good. So we'll have to see how that goes. Doomfist is obviously still a big pick, you know, because with Dive, he's able to stay in with the rest of the team and you know, get to all the places that they need to with the high mobility. But I do think that Dive does have a lot of potential, at least. Now, the third comp that I want to talk about is the traditional Reinhardt and Zarya. This is the bread and butter of Overwatch and is generally effective in most situations. This comp has been struggling for a while, but there is potential for its return depending on just how damaged that double barrier comp has become, specifically because of the Lucio change that we just got, and that allows him to speed boost his team a good deal faster than before. And this is important because it allows Reinhardt and Zarya to very quickly move to where they need to be. And since Orissa's barrier is being put on that longer cooldown and Sigma's barrier is less effective and less reliable, it opens up potential for Reinhardt and Zarya to take that ground away from the enemy team. Like, you just speed boost and go through the enemy barrier, and it puts the Orisa and the Sigma in that disadvantaged position, because the strategy of destroying a barrier at range is still probably not going to be effective even with all these changes. But the better solution, as it seems to have always been, is to just simply ignore it. So Reinhardt could just go right through it. You know, Orisa drops the barrier, Reinhardt gets speed boosted right in, and then you deny that barrier from the enemy team. Like, it doesn't matter that Orissa's barrier is down if it's behind, you know, your Reinhardt and your Zarya, because they're not going to be able to do anything with it. Now, the support combo would still likely be Lucio and Moira. Lucio for the obvious speed boost that I mentioned, and Moira because she can heal up close and not really have to worry too much about the enemy barriers that would otherwise block the healing from characters like Ana and Baptiste. Now, there is a possibility that Mercy could be used as well, but I don't really see her healing output being enough in this situation. I mean, in Dive, it's a different kind of situation where I could see Mercy working in there. But for the Reinhardt Zarya, I'm not really sure. I don't think it would provide enough healing. And I think also looking at Brigitte, I don't think she would really be used all that much either, because you need the Lucio for the speed boost, and his healing combined with Brigitte's healing is fairly low, and you really don't have a whole lot of direct single target healing capability, because you've got the repair packs from Brigitte, but you only have the 3 of them, and you know, there's a decent amount of cooldown for those things to recharge. So if you have a teammate that is taking a lot of, you know, focused attack, then you just don't have the ability to kind of keep them from, you know, getting taken out when you only have a Lucio and a break. Like, there's limited abilities to that. So, I mean, it could work if you were trying to run, like, sort of like a brawly comp, kind of like, you know, a Goat's Light almost. But you would have to be really incredibly aggressive. I don't see it really working on defense. Maybe it could work on attack. But I think that Moira would probably still be the better choice in most situations because of simply the large healing output, right? Like, if you have the Reinhardt and the Zarya up close and they're pushing and they're being aggressive, then you can have that Moira still healing them, even with all the barriers all around and stuff like that. Like, Moira's healing doesn't go through barriers anymore, but it's just easier for her to heal around them. So for a general breakdown and overview, with the pro games in the Overwatch League, we're not going to see anything because they're done for the year and they're not going to be coming back for a while. I mean, maybe they have some exhibition stuff at some point later in the year, but for the most part, the pro games are pretty much done. The upper bracket, however, we're talking high diamond, master, GM, top 500 stuff. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a return to Dive, or at least a partial return. In the lower bracket, the meta is not super important, as often people will just kind of play what they want to play as opposed to what is objectively the best team comp to run at that particular time. But I think that double barrier will still be quite effective in lower bracket, as it's a fairly simple team comp to run. You know, you just drop down the Orisa barrier, you have Sigma throw a barrier in a different direction, and you just kind of stand there and, you know, attack the enemy and let them try to overtake you, and often that's difficult for uncoordinated teams. Even with these changes, it still doesn't seem like countering double barrier by destroying them is all that good of an option. I mean, it is possible, but it just doesn't seem like it's really worth the time. And most often, you're just going to be better off going around it, right? If that means using Winston and D.Va, you just jump over it, dive past it. Or you could have Lucio speed boost your Reinhardt and just go right through it. But in either case, destroying the barriers just is generally a bad option. And this is one of the things I talked about before. I really do think they need to make some changes so that destroying barriers is actually something that you can do more often. But that's a topic for another time. Also, I do want to quickly mention about that Halloween event. I do think it's probably going to start tomorrow, or maybe at least in the next couple days. But a lot of people have been asking about the teasers, and I don't think we're going to get any because it seems like with the last couple events and stuff, they just kind of drop it right the day of. Like, it's a surprise, like, boom, here's the event. You know, it started, here's all the stuff that's in it, blah, 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 that sort of deal. And it just doesn't seem like they're dropping teasers anymore. They're kind of putting that stuff out after the event has started. So I wouldn't really expect too much if you're waiting for that teaser to happen. And as far as the changes that I've been talking about in this video, they are still on the PTR, and I do think there's a good chance that they be included with the Halloween update. But I do have to point out that the PTR hasn't been shut down yet, so maybe it won't, because usually when they're gonna move stuff over to the live, they shut down the PTR first. But since the PTR is still up, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe if they shut down the PTR later today, then we'll know for 100% certainty that it's gonna be up. But until then, you know, it's just most likely situation. But getting back to the team comps and the meta and stuff, for those of you that remember the days of nothing but dive comp day in, day out, are you glad to see that this sort of thing is coming back? Do you not like double barrier that much? Or would you prefer to have something completely different? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.